love me so much more than I could ever know. Your love is deeper than this world will ever show. And all of life's beauty shines around this moment now. The sky and the cliffs, they seem to change my life somehow. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, 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 I will never be the same, never be the same ever again. Well, here I am waiting, Lord, my life is just for you. Please unfold all the plans that you would have me do. And if all the world's just a breath and nothing's here to stay, and all of the love we feel will save us anyway. And I will never be the same, will never be the same. Whoa, 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 I will never be the same, will never be the same ever again.
Hello and welcome to another SDA show, conversation, gathering, and it's great to be here today. I've had a great weekend. Missed you guys. I very much look forward to our 3 programs a week, today, tomorrow at the same time, and then on the Friday, or my Friday, your Thursday in the States at this time as well, where we dig into the good news. My special guest today is, let me press some buttons here, Ben Tavao. How are you, Ben?
Good, thanks, Peter.
Good to have you on the show.
Good to be
And yeah, really good. Good to have you here. You know, I've been blessed or cursed with, I don't know, just enjoying people regardless of what they believe. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. So I have friends that are on all, sides of various perspectives, friends that love vaccination and friends that think it's, of the devil and everyone in between. And I guess I endeavor to try and create a platform where we can have diverse discussions, but try and also find common ground. And, in just chatting for 5 minutes before the show off air, I knew straight away that if we were hanging out at a cafe, we'd get on well, have a great conversation, enjoy each other's company. And I know straight away there's things I would 100% agree with you on, and other things I'd go, yeah, I don't really agree with that. But that's okay. And I really think right now, with what's been going down, and we chatted a little bit about that off air too, this is a time when, if anyone wants to reflect the teachings of Jesus on the planet, this is the time to love your enemies. And I hope that we can have I love robust conversations. I love challenging people's beliefs. I love it.
Me too.
I love sharing my thoughts and opinions on stuff. What I don't like is when people attack people's characters, gossip, rumor mill, tear them down, accuse them of false things, and really miss the point of what Jesus was teaching about.
Absolutely.
And so today I've provocatively called the title "An SDA Pastor Defends the Investigative Judgment." But really, what we're going to do is I want to chat, because you're an ordained Seventh-day Adventist pastor, employed, and this is a rare individual to come on my show. Everyone, you know that ordained, currently employed pastors rarely come on the show because they are scared of losing their jobs. Not just my show, but any public platform where they may not totally say something that the party line, thinks you should be saying. And there's a lot of fear there, and I want to dispel that today. I want to invite more pastors onto the show. Share your views. You're allowed to say this is my personal view, but hey, I love the church, and this is what they believe, and so I'm going along with that for now, because we all try and bring about change and whatnot. So I'm trying to shift the dialogue. I'm trying to create this idea that we can speak openly, and I believe Adventist pastors really need to get out there and stop being scripted. Stop telling people what they think they want to hear and have some honest conversations. So that's what we're doing today. So we are going to talk on a few other topics, but we will focus on the sanctuary doctrine, the investigative judgment doctrine. And before we get into that, I want to just get a sense of what you believe before we dig into how you can not defend it in a put you on the back foot way, but it defended as a share of, how you support your belief with Bible, etc. And so for those watching, welcome, by the way, everyone. Great to see you in the comments, chatting to each other. Love it, as always. I really want you today to focus on this conversation if you can. I know lots of great conversations happen off to the side. I love it. There's no strict rule on that, but I want your thoughts today. I want you to comment. I want you to ask Ben questions. I want you to challenge him. I want you to agree with him. Let's have a good conversation today, a stimulating one where we all get involved into the comments. So where do we start? I guess the investigative judgment, the sanctuary doctrine, is the only distinctive, unique doctrine that the Adventist Church has. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yep. So as I'm saying, everyone that's watching, I'm just going to be asking some questions to clarify the general beliefs that Ben has, and then we're going to drill down into why he believes those. And Ben believes that you can defend the sanctuary doctrine and the investigative judgment doctrine, Bible alone. And so I appreciate that you're going to share that with us today. So I want to now just ponder this unique Adventist message, this unique doctrine. It's a very distinctive doctrine. There's no other church on the planet that has this unique investigative judgment doctrine. In the I can't remember if it was the late 60s or early 70s. I'm going to do a whole show on it soon, but I just can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was Raymond Cottrell. It might be someone else. It might have been Heppenstall. I'm not sure. He wrote to the then president, which I think was Figure, and said, "Look, I'm having some trouble getting our doctrine to fit with the Bible alone." And boy, there's some good comments. I'm going to bring them up, guys. So just hang on a minute. We'll bring them up soon. So, and Figure said, "Well, look, it'd probably be good to nail that down, because we want to be a church of the book. We want to be able to say, hey, this is our doctrine. We don't have to just rely on Ellen White. We can go to the Bible alone." So he said, why don't you call together other scholars, academics, and pastors and talk about it and see what you can do? Again, I'm not getting the numbers, names, dates right at the moment. When I do my show on this, I will. But the general thrust of what I'm saying is correct. So he wrote to, I think, about 20 or 30 other scholars and academics, theologians, pastors, and said, here's my thoughts. And Ray is confirming it was Ray Cottrell. So they all wrote back, apart from 2 or 3, and said, look, we're having the same problem. We can't seem to get the 2,300 days, the 457 BC, the October 22, 1844, the moving from one phase to another. Back then they said from the holy to the most holy. We can't do it without Ellen White. So he says this to Figure, and Figure says, look, that's not good. What are we going to do? So he says, look, get a committee together and study it and come back to me with some, proof that it can be done. Again, facts, dates, not sure. They got together. I'm not sure if it was weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever, but they got together regularly over a period of time, 2 to 5 years from memory. At the end of it, they could not prove it from the Bible alone. And so they disbanded the committee and they kept no minutes, because the leadership felt that, look, if we can't put together something really profound on this, our people are going to be threatened by it, and so they just parked it off to the side. In doing my interviews, and particularly season 2, I interviewed, I'll just get his name right. I can't see it in front of me here. I think it was Alden Thompson. Does that name ring a bell? And he said to me he could, and he was going to come back on the show and do it, but we just didn't get around to it. And another guy, Andre Rios, young guy, lovely guy, he said he can do it and will come on the show at some point as well. Rochelle asked, what is the name of that study? I'm hoping that someone watching, it's not the Veltman study, Rochelle. I'm hoping someone can. Look, I've researched so much on that particular meeting, Rochelle and others who are asking me, but I literally, just off the top of my head, I just have forgotten all the exact figures. But the Veltman study was in the mid 80s and went for 8 years and was looking at the borrowing and the plagiarism. This other study, because it was so kind of it didn't draw any conclusions, it kind of became hidden for a while. Okay, so that's a bit of a background there for this unique doctrine to be defended by the Bible alone. I'm setting the scene there that there's a bit of a challenge there for Adventists to do this, and I'm keen to hear now your kind of general summary of what you are saying the investigative judgment is, and then I want to ask you another couple of questions, and then we're going to go into the defense of it. So Rick says it was DAQ&A. I'm not sure. Yeah, we'll get some answers through the program, but it's not the thrust of what I'm talking about today. It's just setting the scene that people have tried and failed, and there's a sense within the Adventist Church that you can't teach it without Ellen, but maybe that's okay. The Adventist Church has Ellen as the prime authoritative voice correcting error. So maybe you can include her, and we'll see where Ben stands on that soon. But Ben, just tell us briefly, what is the investigative judgment? Is it linked to the sanctuary doctrine? Just a nutshell version, and then I'm going to ask you some more questions.
Yeah, sure. First
And
of all, thank you
sorry for rambling on for so long.
No, I was enjoying listening to that history. That's cool. I could probably listen to you talk some more, Peter. But thanks for inviting me on. As you were talking, I was thinking about the reason why I'm part of this church, and what I love about this church is that, and Mrs. White said this, is that we're a church that has progressive truth, and that we will never, I guess, stop learning about Jesus. I mean, no one can say that they can hold Jesus, right? That would be too arrogant, because Jesus will take all of eternity to understand him. So that's where I'm at. This is what I want to share, is my current understanding of the IG investigative judgment. And I say that because with difficult doctrines like this, we're always progressing, we're always learning. And so for me, coming into the Adventist faith, I've always had an understanding of the gospel. And you've asked me what I believe in. I believe in Jesus, number one, his gospel. And what I've come to find with the investigative judgment is that it depends on the lens that you look at it with. And for me, it's always been gospel, and it's always been Jesus. So for me, in a nutshell, the investigative judgment is having a God that we love, who's interested in my walk, who's interested in being a part of every part of my life, every part of my heart. It's not about a God who's got a stick waiting to punish me, but it's also about a God who wants to be part of my transformation process and to show the world what God looks like. Now, I don't believe that there's ever a time where I'm going to be 100% perfect, and I'll put that out there. However, because sin is such a serious issue, I do think that there is a process that we can see in the sanctuary message found in Leviticus 16, and tied together with the prophecies of Daniel 8:14. I can't help but to think that there's something there. And so looking at it through the lens of the gospel, I'm wondering, what is God up to in regards to getting rid of this whole sin problem, right? So at the cross, just quickly, praise God, praise Jesus for the cross, because without the cross, we're lost. But as I continue to study the Bible, especially with the sanctuary, that blood had to go somewhere. It just didn't dissipate into thin air. And so at the end of everything, when Jesus comes back, and after the millennial, that blood is then placed back onto the one who caused it all, the one who instigated the whole sin problem, right? Which is the Azazel, which is who we believe is Satan. And so there's this full circle from the beginning of Eden, of starting sin. It goes through. Jesus comes 4,000 years later, after Eden. He's a fulfillment of all of the Old Testament, of all the typologies. And then we continue on throughout history in our study, and at the end of it all, that blood that was caused by Satan is put back on that dude, and sin is gone forevermore. And I kind of like that story, because he started it, and he's going to cop it at the end. And if we can do all that we can to hurt him and his kingdom, man, I'm all for it, because he's done a lot to hurt me, and he's done a lot to hurt a lot of people. So that pretty much is the IJ investigative judgment for me, in a nutshell.
Do you think two things with Satan as the scapegoat? When we look at sanctuary traditions and cultural representations of the events that would occur, the scapegoat was always a sinless animal. It was always chosen as a sinless being, and the sins were placed on the sinless creature. How do you justify calling Satan the scapegoat? Are you saying he was sinless?
That's a good question. Jesus also refers to goats in the Bible as those who I guess were part of God's people, but had attitudes that didn't reflect who God was. Matthew 25, perfect example, the sheep and goats. Right, talking about the church, how 50% of the church who love Jesus, and follow Jesus, they receive the kingdom, but then you got the goats. And I don't think even those people who were called goats were sinless. And so I don't have a real answer for you there. But all I do know is that the attitude of the goat is one that doesn't reflect Jesus.
I guess I'm saying that when the ceremonies and rituals were carried out, it was important for them to find a pure creature.
Yep.
And that the symbol of the scapegoat was to place the sins onto a pure being. And that's why the general Christian body, unlike the Adventists,
Yep.
teach that Jesus was the scapegoat, because he is that pure lamb and the sins are cast on him. He bears the sins. There's no further retribution passed on to another creature. And I guess that's why I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to challenge you. I'm just
No.
saying that it's interesting that Adventists want to kind of punish Satan for that. He will get his comeuppance later, but why would they include the placing of the sins on him when the Bible teaches that the sins are placed on a pure lamb, and that was the whole point of the cross? I'm confused as to why do they need to do that, is I guess what I'm asking.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like I said to you before we got up on here, you're not going to get much defense from me. I mean, I'm just a guy who's on a journey as well and understanding the investigative judgment. But in my current understanding, I think that there's something there to look at. It may not be fully on how the Adventists understand it or believe it, but I think there's something there.
Yeah. No, I've only started exploring the Satan as scapegoat thing recently myself, so it's an interesting journey to just look at this stuff. But I have sat there thinking, if the whole point of the atonement was for Christ to bear the sins as a pure lamb, why do Adventists? I just can't answer it either. I don't know why Adventists feel they've got to place the sins on Satan when at the end of the time, when he is destroyed and punished, that's when his punishment comes. Like, what's this ritual that never occurred in the Bible? There was never a sanctuary ritual where the sins were placed on a sinful creature. And so I ponder that one. So maybe ponder that, and we'll have a part 2 and see if you can shed some more light on it as you reflect on it.
Yeah. Wish you had sent me that question beforehand.
I didn't even think about it till it popped into my head now. That's what I said off air. The great thing about having a conversation like this, where it's not planned, is it can be seen as a conversation starter. We're helping to start dialogue. Neither of us are coming here saying we have all the answers. We're having dialogue to create questions, to create dialogue. That's essentially what we're doing. And I really appreciate you doing that.
Fair enough.
So the other thought about, so do you believe October 22, 1844, something happened that night? Something supernatural happened that night in heaven?
Yeah.
Was that when this shift in the ministry changed from one thing to another? Jesus didn't come back Adventists are like, well, no, he didn't come back, but the date happened. Something happened. And Ellen White confirms with vision that William Miller's dates were correct, but he didn't come back. And that's when they started to formulate these other ideas. Oh, he started a new ministry. So I just want to, again, this is that question time, getting your ideas so I can get a sense of what you believe.
Sure.
What do you believe that that's true? Something happened literally that night?
Yeah. Again, going back to the sanctuary model, there was that Yom Kippur moment, once a year, where the high priest went into the most holy place. You understand all of that. And so there are phases, I guess, that we understand in their ministry, and God is very meticulous. He's really, really detailed on how that worked out and how that played out in the sanctuary in Leviticus 16. And so I asked myself, well, why did God do it that way? Why didn't he do it just another way where it's just easy, where the lamb just died and we all just, get on with life? But he doesn't. There's a certain process into how God dealt with that sin. And so, for me, I had this question going into college. I go, where was Jesus all that time? What was he doing? Was he just hanging out? And then we come, and so I go back to the sanctuary, and it kind of makes sense to me that, there are phases in Jesus' ministry where he was interceding for the people as the high priest. And then once a year, he goes into that, the most holy place. And so 1844 it makes sense to me in the sense of the timeline because, well, number one, the Maccabees didn't fit for me. It didn't make sense for me. And Antiochus Epiphanes, that didn't make sense for me. But when you consider the 2300-day prophecy with the year-day principle, and I know there's a lot of argument over that too, it seems to me that things kind of fit in line. And so if things fit, like with Jesus' death, the stoning of Stephen, all of this stuff, if they all fit, then something special happened there. And so going back to the sanctuary model, it kind of makes sense that Jesus did change his phase of his ministry to now going into that last bit where he's,
I guess, like when I interviewed Lloyd Grolleman, and he's watching tonight. Good to see you, Lloyd. Love your thoughts. And when you come on the show, he was like, hey, lots of pastors come on. No, Ben, Neil, Paul the other week. Nathan Brown, I don't think is a pastor, and Lloyd. So there's 4 in 5 years. I've had pastors come on, but not asking the hard questions, And I think people want to hear unscripted, hard questions being asked, and people love if you say I don't know as well.
Yeah.
So with this idea of the dates and everything fitting into line, when I talked to Lloyd about that, he said, oh, well, roughly around that time. But I'm thinking, sometimes we think, well, there's some evidence that Jesus, did he die AD 31 or AD 33? We're not too sure now that we look at we've got better ways to date this sort of stuff. If you get that wrong, it's going to throw your October 22, 1844 out altogether. I'm not trying to pin you down or ask hard questions. I'm just trying to find out what you believe. So you're saying that it is that night, October 22, all the dates leading to that, including Christ's death, all fall into sync to make that night the specific October 22, beginning of the new phase. Just wondering if that's what you believe.
That's my current understanding. Peter. And if not that exact night, somewhere around there. But currently, I believe it was, what is it? October 22 on that night.
Yeah, good. And I'm not trying to get you to defend that. I'm just finding out what you believe.
Yeah.
Ray Smith. I'll just bring some comments because they're coming fast and they'll disappear off the top.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Ray. Thanks for your thoughts as always. I suggest that the starting point is the judgment that happened on the cross. Christ bore God's judgment on sin, and on this basis, Christ twice told us we do not come into judgment. And again, this is why people who aren't Adventists or people who have left the church are like, why is this interesting little judgment inserted? We know there's a judgment. as Ray said about the cross, the atonement of the cross. Even Des Ford said to me, I believe in a pre-Advent judgment. Couple of minutes before Christ returns, goats one side, sheep the other. What do you think the unique reason is for having it in 18? I can understand. I said this to Steve Daly. If the Lord had returned some point within the 7 years after 1844 would make sense. But as time goes on, 170 plus years, everyone's like, it now falls into this general sense of a judgment. And of course, it suddenly doesn't make as much sense. How do you hold on to it being a valid, inserted judgment, not at the cross, not totally at the imminent return of Christ, but hovering in there in the 1840s? Why is that still a valid date for you?
I don't know. It's only because of I just go in faith that my understanding of the prophetic timeline, it just fits and it's around there somewhere. So something special definitely happened for me.
When you say definitely, you're meaning as in you've looked at the data and that's what you've concluded. You're not saying definitely in the sense of, if I sit in a chair, I can pretty well guarantee it's not going to break, even though it might break, based on evidence. You're saying more, God speaking to you, or there's kind of a sense that it's right. I mean, Ellen White says those dates are accurate, and you just said a little bit earlier that around that time. Lloyd has shifted it even further, and some Adventist theologians are saying, well, it could be a year or two. I spoke to someone the other night that's high up in the AUC, and he said, well, look, it could have been give or take 5 or 10 years. It's generally around that time period, and the imminent return could be a general. And I'm thinking, come on, you guys are watering this down more and more. I think it's important to nail it down. Even when I asked Bill Johnson, I said, how certain are you something supernatural happened that night? And he paused for like 10 seconds and then said, oh, I don't know if I could answer that. Adventists need to be able to answer it because it's their only distinct doctrine. I'm getting annoyed with the Adventists that are a bit wishy-washy about it.
No, and I can understand. And I can understand that. I mean, it's such a hard one in a sense where, how do you explain something but at the same time defend the character of God by doing it? Because I understand that God is love, right? And so everything has to come underneath those circumstances, underneath who God is. And so because God is such a big God, we got to try and get these I guess this understanding of our doctrine in order. Going with the 2300-year prophecy, I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. And when you said looking at the data, so we compare it with everything else. We look at literal days, and that's where I land at what was a year day principle. So taking it from 457 BC all the way up to that's my current understanding. And it's something definitely special happened around that time. If you looked around what was going on at that time, a lot of churches started around that time. Darwinism.
Does that make it right though?
No, it doesn't make it right at all.
But you're saying that at that time there was a real interesting spiritual revival. It's interesting actually within the area of Joseph Smith, Ellen G. White. What's the lady that started Christian Science? Not Scientology, the Christian Science lady. I've forgotten. They all lived within 200 miles of each other. And it was all happening. You're right. It was all happening at that time. But you've got Joseph Smith making claims, and Mormons say, that resonates with me. Or what he's saying, that just makes sense. Yeah. But there's no real way to prove it. And Adventists go, October 22, that just makes sense. Look at the dates, they all add up. But there's no real way to kind of prove it. And then if you say, well, let's have God as our overarching, let's make him the center, Jesus, the cross, his salvation grace, his salvational grace, his ability to transform us. What if teaching people that something incorrect happened and that a scapegoat who is sinless inaccurately is given the sins? What if that is wrong? And a lot of Christians do say that, and it's actually a hidden blasphemy to teach it, but to feel, but it feels good to me, and it all adds up to me, and I was born an Adventist, and happy Sabbath, and hey, it's all about Jesus. Let's not dig into this stuff. But what if deep down it's a Trojan horse that
Mhm.
actually takes people away from the gospel? Are those things that you've ever pondered?
Yeah, most definitely. And as a minister for the past 17 years now, I've actually seen people who just are really hard on the investigative judgment, and some of the attitudes that come across are just not most unchristian people I've ever met. And just poor, and so that makes me kind of look at it again, in
Yeah.
a different way, and I'm like, nah, I don't want to be that type of Christian, and I'm not
No.
being mental. Jesus said we can be fruit inspectors, right? We're
Yeah.
not to judge, but we can tell them by the fruits, man. And
Exactly.
it's just nasty as.
And that's why people watching this, they go, oh, we're asking some questions, we're looking at some things, we're raising some issues.
Yeah.
We're talking about a topic.
Yeah.
But people can see that we're having a civil conversation. We're demonstrating in motion that you don't have to dislike people just because you disagree.
Absolutely. And I'm open to agree to disagree. That's always
Yeah.
been a thing that I've taught my churches and in my boards, that it's okay to agree to disagree. Just don't get nasty about it.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
And even on my Facebook posts, I put up some controversial stuff as well. And I've just told people, look, I'm open for the spirit of agree to disagree, but if you're going to be nasty about it,
Exactly.
pick
Yeah.
you
No point being nasty at all. And I guess where I'm coming from too is that what I'm noticing is that within the Adventist Church, particularly since Questions on Doctrine in the late 50s, where the Adventists wanted to appeal to the broader evangelical church. And you know the story. They met with Barnhouse and they met with Walter Martin, and the leaders at the time convinced him that no, we're more evangelical than you think. And then released the book, and he kind of was going to put Adventists in this Kingdom of the Cults book, and they ended up only getting a footnote, not a full chapter, because of these leaders. But at that point, a lot of Adventists were like, hang on, you're telling him stuff and you're releasing a book that is not traditionally what we teach. And so in the church, you have post that era, and in the 60s and 70s, a lot of scholars, theologians and pastors, Des Ford included, Heppenstall, Cottrell, Fritz Guy, Larry Garrity, these guys are changing the sanctuary doctrine. They're watering it down. You've then got the people going, don't change our doctrine. Now, one of the things they changed in that book was the very nature of Christ. Prior to Questions on Doctrine, the Adventists taught that Jesus had a propensity to sin. He lived on this earth, but he didn't sin. And so he confirms that he was a human, but did not sin. Some of us would say that's because you need a pure, spotless lamb to have a sacrifice. But a lot of Adventists, traditional Adventists, say that's as a demonstration for us that we can follow and not sin just like Jesus. I'm not saying that's what you think, but I'm saying that's traditionally what Adventists taught. Question on Doctrine comes out and shifts it to know Christ already had a spiritual being. He was a pure lamb as he came down here with no propensity to sin. Now, that one shift, and there's about 5 massive shifts, really caused the problems we still face today. That's what led to Glacier View, the defrocking of Des, the split in the church, the early 80s, hundreds of ministers in America and Australia losing their jobs because this line had been drawn. So there's 2 churches in one, I always say. Yeah, there's the leaders and there's other groups and subsets, and liberal progressives hate being divided into categories. But there's, generally speaking, 2 theologies. And I guess what I'm trying to find with the pastor on the ground, how do they present? Because I don't see yours as the big, serious, whack 'em over the head traditional pastor's line, but I also don't see it as the Ute tree hugging liberal progressive nothing happened on October 22 line as well. So as a pastor in the field, teaching, pastoring, obviously the most important thing is feeding the hungry, putting shelter for the homeless, going to hospitals. They're the important things. Focusing on Jesus, they're important. But my theory is that the theology also affects the narrative of a movement. And I
Sure.
see two sides of the church that
Sure.
never get on. They're chalk and cheese. And I'm like, you guys are holding each other back. So as a pastor on the ground, you're at times focused totally on just the pastoral care stuff, the important stuff, the stuff I think's the best stuff.
Yeah.
But you've also got to realize that, hang on a second, like I interviewed Christopher Mindanao, and he had just been kicked out of the church, young pastor, because he was asked on a platform, do you know, who is the seal of God? Or what is the seal of God? And he said, oh, well, the Holy Spirit. Well, Adventists don't teach that. Paul, from the Bible, Apostle Paul taught that, but Adventists teach that the seal of God is the Sabbath. He lost his job for that. So we're coming into a time where that traditional style Adventist theology is really hitting the road again. Leadership is kind of leaning towards there's a more conservative style. So the big long way to the question is, how does someone like you on the ground, when confronted with theological discrepancies, how do you deal with that in your local everyday discussions with people?
I just tell it like it is. Watching your shows, Peter, I've been learning a lot about the history, because like I said to you, I come into Adventism late, and there's a lot of guys like me who came into Adventism late, and even this generation, Gen Z and all that, this is not even on the radar, bro. Like,
well, what I'm saying is it's not on the radar, but there are two churches in one. And you might go to a church and all of a sudden you're going to get the legalistic stuff, full well.
Yeah.
That there are churches
yeah.
that young people can stumble into. They don't care about this stuff, but they will be devastated by it. My daughter, she hangs out with me all the time.
Yeah.
She goes to the local Adventist school. The teachers are great. I love it. But every now and again, a traveling preacher comes in. She has nightmares.
Yeah.
So whether people can say, oh, I don't care about this, I'm only focused on social justice, the reality is the theology forms what's downstream. What's downstream of bad theology creates mental health issues with the people.
That's true. Religious trauma is real, bro.
Yeah. So you're the pastor downstream.
Mm-hmm.
Do you acknowledge as you teach people that the church has two histories? One, since the 50s, that's a little bit more progressive and puts Ellen White in the back, and another one that continues to treat her as ongoing authority. That's got to be an important thing to consider, whether the kids like it or not. It's gonna affect them. Like 40% to 60% of young Adventists are leaving in droves.
Yeah, that's why it's important, and that's why I'm still in this game, because I believe that there is a gospel to be taught, and I think we can teach that gospel through doctrines like the seal of God, and like through the investigative judgment on how I see it. I think there's more light to be shed on these topics. We just haven't arrived at an absolute on how our understanding of the investigative judgment. I just don't think we have. But number two, in saying that, your view on investigative judgment and my view, or people who don't believe in investigative judgment, if we all have Jesus, are we still going to meet in heaven? Like, are we still going to meet in heaven? And the answer to that is, yeah, our salvation is secure in Jesus. So having the investigative judgment, the understanding of the investigative judgment is not salvational. I'm pretty sure we can agree on that. It is not.
You and I can agree on that, but there's a lot of Adventists leaders. There's a lot of Adventist leaders that wouldn't. Ted Wilson wouldn't have agreed with you.
Oh, well, that's their problem, bro. Because
it's not their problem, though. It's not their problem, though, because what happens downstream marinates into the kids. The water flows into them, and if you get any inkling of fear of salvation, like I'm a way different generation to you. I'm an old man, but when I was young, we were definitely worried about close of probation, coming back, Sunday law, and that's creeping in again. So I see the pastors as the gatekeepers for mental health for their church. And if you're part of a collective that is not really caring for people's mental health, you might be one person, but most pastors are either trying to just, let's focus on the good stuff. Even Bill Johnson, it's all about Jesus. Let's go back to the one project, while kids are leaving the church because these issues aren't being faced. Legalism is rampant in the Adventist church.
Yep. That hasn't been my experience. I've seen a lot of youth staying into the church with these doctrines. We slowly introduce them, hopefully, from a really gospel, Christ-centered view, and the picture of how we see God. And yeah.
But what happens when they stumble across the other stuff? And what happens when people like this, release this book, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, progressive people like you that want to see the church focus on Jesus. They want to see the church focus on the gospel. They want to see the church focus on reclaiming the prophet, putting her in a sense of devotional spirit and wonderful, wise lady. 6 days after the release of it, it's pulled and banned.
I didn't know that, but I mean,
so these are the good guys. I'm not. You just said I'm not noticing this happening in the church. After everything's hunky dory, the kids are fine. We're coming along. We promote the gospel. Your leaders just promoted the gospel, released a book on it, and 6 days later it was banned.
Yeah, again, that's why I like being in this church, because they don't dictate the way I do my ministry. In fact, they've given
those guys just did dictate it, though. Christopher Mindanao lost his job. Reindeer Bruinsma had to shift his meeting because it didn't agree with the church leadership. Well, these guys are having effect on your pastoral level. Look what happened with the AUC recently. Did you go to that?
No, I didn't. I just think they're bigger fish to fry than looking at all that other stuff. That's me personally.
And I agree with you. That's my whole ministry when I was an Adventist, was doing what you do, focusing on Jesus, focusing on that good stuff, focusing on getting the kids to have a happy mental health experience in their journey.
Yep.
And what worries me, though, is when the leaders who that publicly carry your and my view get banned. When young pastors speak their mind, ask a few questions, get fired. There's something happening out there that you might say, well, it doesn't affect me. I'm not worried about that. This is just people doing their thing. What if someone watches this today and says, oh, did he just say that the October 22 might be around that time? There might be leaders up there that go, right, we're going to kind of have to watch this guy. There's an air of, for me to only have in 5 years, 5 pastors maximum speak as honestly as you are, there's something wrong if people are worried to come on the show or any other show, isn't there? You got to admit that.
Oh man, I've said stuff that is biblically based and biblically sound that goes against a lot of the traditional views of this church, and I still got a job. So I'm doing something right. Look,
and believe me, I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong at all. I'm actually saying you're doing something right. I'm just saying that if you look at the collective, the big picture, you're doing something right. You speak up. Lloyd speaks up. For some reason, nothing ever happens to you guys. But most people won't speak up.
Just blessed and highly favored, my bro.
This mate I was talking to the other night, I said, okay, you've said all this stuff. Come on the show and share it. No, I'd lose my job. And that's what most, you don't, but isn't it something that you sit back and go, hang on, I don't, but 99 of 100 are too scared to come and speak their truth.
I don't care.
No.
As long as I stand on my Bible, I'm fine, bro. I'm fine.
But as part of a collective, don't you care that the collective are scared of being fired for speaking their truth?
Listen,
that's got to concern you, doesn't it?
I don't know why that guy got sacked about saying that the seal of God is the Holy Spirit. That's something that I believe in. I've always taught. I've always said that when does a seal actually happen for when the Sabbath becomes a seal, right? Is it now or is it in the future? Those are for people who accept that view. And they all say in the future. So you can't put the Sabbath as a seal right now, right? Because if you try and make the Sabbath a seal right now, that's what makes us weird. Because then we start going, oh, bro, you know.
Do you get my point? I agree with you.
I get your point, but
No, I agree with you. I agree with your thought, your teaching on that, your belief that the Holy Spirit is the seal of God, not the Sabbath. I get that. I believe you. I'm just saying, hey, look at you and me. We sit back and we're just noticing that 99, let's say we're two people and there's 98 other people that are interested in that topic. And 98 of them won't say what you and I have just said because they're scared of losing their job. I could understand if there was 20% or a bigger number, whatever. But to have most people, doesn't that concern you as part of a fraternity of pastors? Yeah, in your world, it's fine. You're not going to lose your job. You speak your mind. I love it. That's not my point. My point is, aren't you, as someone that cares about your pastoral community, not just your local church, aren't you concerned that under the leadership of the Adventist Church, there is not a lot of freedom for people to speak like you do? Isn't that a concern?
I honestly don't know the context of how those other pastors or my colleagues got fired and sacked. But I don't know anyone.
Don't look at that context. Look at the context of people being asked onto the show, this show and other shows, and saying, I can't because I will lose my job. I'm saying, look back in the early 80s when hundreds of ministers lost their job because they sided a little bit with the new theology. I'm saying that ongoing spirit of suppression and marginalization and ostracism that has been in the church since Canwright is not good. So what does someone like yourself who does speak freely, who's got some great views on the gospel, who permeates even the IJ with a sense of Jesus and the gospel, the good news, is it just, I'll just keep my head down, do what I'm doing? Don't you sit back and go, whoa, there's a problem here. This needs to be addressed. What can I do about it? Doesn't that cross your mind?
Yeah. I mean, now that you brought it up, it's concerning. If I knew someone personally who was going through that within my own conference, or one of my mates who were sacked or being suppressed for their beliefs, most definitely, man, I would stand up for them. As long as, it was biblically sound, most definitely I'll be with my brothers or sisters and fight with them, But it's just not my purview. It's not something that I've come across. I haven't even thought about it. What's more important to me, Peter, is Jesus' Great Commission. And that's something that I don't think that we're doing well as an SDA church. And that's my passion, is to go and make disciples. Now, it's not the great suggestion. It's not the great piece of advice. This is a great commission given to us as pastors and all Christians from the CEO of the universe. And yet we just go, oh, that's nice. Let's just focus on other things around us. And yet we're failing and making disciples.
I guess my theory is that the reason you guys are failing is because of this suppression. I think instead of going, hey, I'm just going to focus on the good news and telling it as it is, which is great, do that. But I'm saying the reason the Adventist Church is failing is because people look on and they go, that's a crazy doctrine. That's a good doctrine, but they're not willing to shout it from the rooftops. These guys are fighting. It's chalk and cheese. Looking on, people are like, this is just not working. The two sides hinder each other's progress. And I see everyone going, oh, I don't know what the problem is. And they just knuckle down and keep doing what they feel called to do, which I did for 30 years too. But I think the problem is the suppression. Adventism suppresses people. Like I've had one pastor, maybe two if we count Lloyd, come on the show and say publicly, I support women's ordination. It's not what the church is teaching at the moment, but boy, I wish it had come on. You just don't find that. And I think that is the problem. Not that we're doing a heap of stuff to provide, great opportunities for women in ministry. And we know that.
Hmm.
Yes, good, of course. This is women's ordination, not allowing women, like at one point, I don't know what it is now, but at one point in our AUC, of the 23 jobs at an administrative level available, only 10 were available to women of the 23 because they're a woman. Now,
Hmm.
that's unethical to me. Now, some people might land on their thought after thinking about it and go, I prefer women not to be. Okay, you can think that. I don't like the suppression. That's my point. There's a suppression here. And pastors go, why isn't things working? Why is everyone leaving the church? Why can't they grasp this notion? They can't, because Adventism is two levels. It's two movements in one. They don't get on. They're chalk and cheese.
Hmm.
And that's why you don't have an effective gospel. Because some are speaking a very liberal, progressive gospel. Some are speaking, you better stand perfect at the end of time or you're not going to heaven. And some are in the middle, blending the two together.
Yeah.
But for the people watching on, it's one big mess of confusion. So
Yep.
when the Adventists in there are trying to do ministry, they're confused. And I'm just saying, well, now as a former looking in from the outside, I can see why it's confusing, because you guys aren't standing up for freedom of speech within your own church.
Oh,
Like you just said, I'm not really seeing it though.
no, I haven't. Well, the conferences that I've worked in, it's only been 2. This is my second one. I've never seen it. In fact, when it comes to women ordination, both conferences I've been in has been very pro. It's actually been the opposite.
Pro women ministry or pro women's ordination? What conferences are they?
The Western Australian Conference and the Victorian Conference.
So in the recent meetings, I think there were 6 of the 9 conferences that voted to have women's ordination voted on. I think in the NAD, people watching tell me if I'm wrong, in the North American division, they've gone ahead, they've broken protocol, they're non-compliant with the policy of the GC, and they are ordaining women. And everyone over here was saying, come on SPD, come on AUC, you should do that too. So they've been saying in recent months, it's going to happen. 6 of the 9 conferences, they're all on board with it. 2 conferences pull out a week or 2 beforehand, change their mind. So on the floor, it's now gone from women's ordination is going to be voted on to, it's just going to be discussed. And then as it leads up to the meeting, it's not even going to be discussed. And then they got wind of people going to get on the floor. And what do they do when you're on the floor and you bring up something? A motion to have it put as a conversation. They saw that coming. And so the new president gets up, or the old one, I can't remember, and removes the right to have a motion from the floor. So when you say, yeah, this conference is great and that conference supports it, in reality, what just happened? They didn't support it. And those that did shut up and weren't allowed to speak. And that's my point. You guys are never going to have an effective gospel ministry in Adventism collectively. You might have an individually good one, and there's people around here that run churches and they're great. But collectively, the church is going to stick in the mud until it addresses the freedom of speech and stops suppressing your ministers and stop suppressing your women.
Yeah, man. I mean, like currently,
I'm passionate, not to you, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm passionate about the topic.
I'm just saying, I'm not denying it's a. I'm trying to find a word. It's a crap show, with a lot of stuff that's going around. But like all families, man, we fight, we love each other, and like I said in the beginning of this of our interview, I believe in progressive truth. That's why I'm in this fight. That's why I'm in this church.
Well, why isn't it progressing? Like women, I'm running into women that are furious. They were promised during the Munoz era, it's going to change. They were promised during the Terry Johnson era, it's going to change. The new leadership, awesome. Brendan Pratt's in, he's a great guy. It's going to change. He's just kicked the can down the road till 2027 and says we need consensus. You're never going to get consensus. If girls are in the bush and lost, you don't have 100 people saying, hey, we're just got to all agree that we're going to go and do it first. Or some people want to go look there. No, you get in the bush and you go. It's time. And I'm just, and again, I'm passionate. I'm not talking against you. I'm just passionate against them. You guys. Not Ben, you guys.
I hear you, bro. I hear you, man.
And they are furious because this isn't just progressive truth. It's gone backwards. It's not progressing. It's
Yeah, yeah.
going backwards. So what are you guys doing about it? What are the pastors doing about it? What are they doing to bring about an equality within the church? Now, hey, I'm not saying that you'll have those 23 jobs and half will be women and half will be from this culture and half, I'm not talking about equity. I'm just saying equal opportunity. And if there's pastors who don't believe in women being ordained, I'm fine with that. I'm not fine with the people saying, hey, we believe in it, we're going to bring about change, and then they don't. They just are all talk. Women are sick of the all talk. They'd prefer someone to go, it's never going to happen. Stop worrying about it. Adventist church from the top doesn't believe women should be ordained. Well, that's what they should run with then. It's the false double talk stuff, and it's the silence of the good guys that people are upset with. It's the silence of the good guys.
Sure. Look, I believe in unity and not uniformity, right? So if the world church makes a decision on something, I believe that we should all come together and try and make it work. It's not gonna work if we keep worrying and fighting each other.
Yeah.
But my experience has been different from yours, Peter, to be quite honest with you, because like I said, I come from I came from a pro conference into another pro conference, but the suppression hasn't been about the people who are pro women's ordination. The suppression has been more on the guys who are against women's ordination. That's been the honest truth.
That's
Some of
there
my
too.
colleagues are scared to come out, even in the meetings, to share their views without being demonized.
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you.
It goes both ways, bro. Both ways.
Mate, you've nailed it. I 100% agree with you. To me, when I like Ted Wilson, I don't agree with him, but I liked that he said, we as a movement do not believe women should be ordained. I like that he was honest. I can then disagree or agree and have a conversation about it. My point is not that there are people on one side who want to speak openly that they don't agree. I agree. Those guys are shut down too. That kind of confirms my point. It doesn't make it go away. Those guys are shut down.
Mm-hmm.
The guys who want it to happen are shut down.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in the Adventist church that just shuts people down. And then people wonder, why can't I have this beautiful gospel ministry? Because your leadership shuts you down and stifles you. Look what they did to poor, Ron Kelly. I don't agree with Ron, but he admitted to me that new theology unravels the traditional teachings of the Adventist church. Look how terrible they were in just firing him to silence his voice. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with his beliefs. I don't agree with silencing people. And so your experience, I totally get what you're saying there. There's people who feel women shouldn't be ordained, and they've studied it in the Bible, and that's where they've landed on. I respect that if they say it, but they're too scared to say it.
Yeah.
And then there's people who say, no, I've looked at it and I believe women should be ordained. And they're too scared to say it as well. That's my point.
No.
So the good guys in the middle that are saying we need to have open conversation about this. I know you've been having some fantastic conversations with Nathan Brown, and they're robust. And, I want to get both of you on the show and have a talk about that topic. But, I know you're not scared of robust conversations, but there needs to be more Ben Tavaos that are willing to go, let's have an open discussion about this.
Oh, no.
You deserve every right.
It's Tavao, trust me.
You have every right to claim. I don't know where you land on women's ordination, but you have every right to say, in my study of it, I don't believe women should be ordained.
Yeah.
You can draw that conclusion, but you need to be able to have the freedom to say that.
Exactly.
And so do the guys, who wrote this book, who support women's ordination. Most of them, 99% of them, they deserve the right to be able to say it too. This is what I'm talking about. This is kind of something that we hadn't planned this, but this is an important tangent because it's the very reason.
What was that book again? Can I have a look?
It's called Reclaiming the Prophet.
Oh yeah, is
An
that what
honest defense of Ellen White.
are you like
Bill-
Oprah Winfrey? Do we get a free book every time we come onto the show?
Yeah, look under your seat. It's there right now.
Oh,
I snuck in this morning and I taped it. And this is like
that
all
book.
the big guys: Eric Anderson, Niels Eric Andreessen, Jonathan Butler, Dennis 14, Lawrence Garrity, Ron Graybill, George Knight, Don McAdams, Gil Valentine, banned.
What
I don't care. I don't agree with their theme.
the heck?
They're not reclaiming Ellen. They're revising Ellen. Leave Ellen be. Leave the conservatives to the Adventist Church. Progressives, get out of their hair.
Yeah.
My point is, it's the freedom of speech and the suppression. And I just think,
That's what I don't
as
like.
a pastor and as someone with a mic, we have a responsibility to speak up for those who don't have the freedom to do so.
Yeah.
And I just wish the Adventist pastors would stop being so weak and get off their butts and actually get some movement happening to stand for what they believe. I don't care if it's a truckload of people say we don't believe in women's ordination. Great, get up and say it. Be proud. Stop being a wuss. Those who believe in women's ordination, stop being weak. Get up and publicly say it. Then you can have open and honest dialogue, and then the rest of the world looks in and goes, you guys are authentic. Right now, I promise you, since leaving the church 9 years ago, people look into the Adventist church and think it's a bunch of scripted, non-authentic individuals.
Mm. Maybe that's a question you can leave for me and Nathan at the next one. Okay? We'll have a robust,
let's try and do it next week. I was going to avoid the topic, but you're inspiring me.
I probably won't have a job next week, but that's okay.
Well, someone just wrote, should his conference be alerted that he is teaching contrary to E.G. White, maybe it will wake him up when he gets let go.
Oh, listen, I believe that Ellen G. White had a lot of inspiring writings, man. Like a lot of the sermons that I do, and I go and check on her stuff, the Holy Spirit has spoken the same thing. So there's some really good stuff. Is there some stuff out there that I don't understand, or just go, what the heck was that about? Of course there is, but I don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Like, she's got some good stuff that I look at. So
what though what if there's a prophecy she makes that doesn't come true? What if there's things she said God told her and we find out he didn't tell her because it didn't come true? Isn't there a Bible text that says even one false thing defines them as a false prophet? Then you can be like Joseph Smith was a good person too. They've got schools and hospitals and lovely people. But would you say that Joseph Smith is a prophet? He had a few cray ideas. Ellen said specifically that William Miller's dates are right, and October 22 is right. God told her in vision. So if we say that that's wrong and it's a day or two either side or around that time, we're not saying that she made a mistake. We're saying that God's message to her was wrong, because you don't get that wrong.
Yeah.
God speaks and says, hey, last night, Ellen, the dates were right. You guys just got it wrong on what happened. He's not going to kind of make that difficult to understand. And then she spent her entire life. If I'd asked her, did something happen October 22, spiritual, supernatural? She would have said, of course. She wouldn't have got paused. Oh, I can't answer that question, Peter.
Yeah.
Oh, it was around that time. Oh, I need to look into that progressive truth. I need to look at some progressive truth on that one. No, God said to her ear in vision up here, a vista. Something happened that night, Ellen. So you question that, you're questioning her prophetic ability. If you question that, you're questioning God's voice to her, which means she's a false prophet.
Yeah, look, one of the
how do you answer that? Like, are you going to come back on your saying that it's around that time, or are you going back to that it's October 22 for sure?
Let me just start off by saying this. So one of the most, I guess, profound experiences I had in college was my last year, and I shared this with you, Peter. And I was doing a paper on the 1844 Investigative Judgement and Doctrine, because as a new convert to the faith, man, I was like, what the heck is this all about?
I know. I love your story, because you came into the church as an adult.
Yeah, I was like,
you're so rare, man, on so many levels.
Well, I think there's more of us coming across who's trying to understand.
Not statistically.
Maybe not. Yeah, but I mean, bringing up my kids and stuff, it's hopefully I've been bringing them up in the gospel. So there's this generation who's coming up with this new one. Well, hopefully it's a fresh understanding of Adventism. But in my last year, I was doing my paper, and one of my friends, Jimmy Watanabe and Pastor Louis
Yes.
Curtis.
I know Jimmy.
Do you know Jimmy?
Love Jimmy.
Yeah, so we were in college together, and he
Yeah.
pointed me out to Des Ford was in one of the rooms in the library. He goes,
What?
"You're doing your paper on 1840. You better go speak to this dude." And
The man who wrote about it. Yes.
the man who wrote about it. And so
did you?
yeah, I did. I actually approached him and I said, "Hey, listen, I'm doing my paper on blah blah blah. Can we set up a time where I can interview you?" And he was nice about it and said, "Yep." And so we booked an appointment. And one of the things I learned from this, I may not agree with 100% of everything that he said, but one of the things that I learned from him, and he asked me this question, he goes, "Was Ellen G. White fallible or infallible?" And of course, you have to say fallible, otherwise you're heresy. She's human. And she goes, "Is 100% of her writings fallible or infallible?" Oh man, that made me think.
Yeah.
I was like, could she have made mistakes? I go, she's human. She could have made mistakes.
I think Adventists go down this pathway, though, of saying she was flawed and human as some kind of justification. You don't. If you say to me that God came to you in a vision and said that date is exactly right, and then you don't believe it is exactly right, that is either you being wrong or she's a false prophet. Because that's not a mistake. That's like, oh, I made a mistake. I got cranky. I wrote that wrong and I should have said this instead. Or, yeah, I borrowed that piece of material. I should have put the person's name on it.
Yeah.
When you get one prophetic vision wrong, the Bible teaches that you are a false prophet. Run. Like Paul talks very decidedly about false prophets. So you can, I mean, my opinion is different to yours. I think she's a false prophet. I think she's a devotional person, a lovely, inspiring person. Look how she dealt with stuff. Look how she set up the unions. What an incredible idea that Ted Wilson trod all over. She set up the unions so cultures can run their church from the ground level at their church. That's her inspiration. Brilliant. But don't tell me that you were accurate on 1844, October 22, Ellen.
Fair enough.
William Miller got those dates wrong and they don't line up.
Yep.
And new evidence really confirms that even 457 is totally inaccurate.
Yeah.
So that means when she said, God told me William Miller was right.
Yeah.
What? That's false. Did she make that up? Is she a flawed individual that went, oops, sorry, I made a mistake. I'm a human. I'm flawed. I'm also God's mouthpiece. I'm also the ongoing authority for a whole movement. I'm also there to correct people if they have an incorrect view of the scripture. How can you be wrong on that one distinctive thing?
I don't know. And getting back to my point about being human, man, I've said a lot of stuff in my ministry 17 years ago that I just look back and cringe about,
And but you're not saying you're a messenger of God. Like you're a messenger and you're an inspired pastor and you're getting inspiration from the Lord to speak. But you're not saying God told me last night, everybody. I know you're all disappointed, but actually something did happen last night. God told me. And he went from the holy to the most holy. Oh, hang on, later, progressive truth, one phase to another, because we know he died at the cross and went straight to the most holy. It's just filled with reverse engineering mistakes and blunders. Yes, you made a mistake. Don't claim to be a prophet. You're not claiming to be a prophet, are you?
Well, I was going to say this. One of the mistakes that I believe our church has made in the past is not apologizing for our mistakes.
Amen.
I think that's the first place we should have done. That's the first thing we should have done, from the literal place. And now we're going into a phase to all these other things that we've changed our views on. And all we had to do was just be humble ourselves and just say, hey, we made a mistake, but we're on a journey of trying to understand this. If we just came with that attitude, I think people will be more into
100%.
who we are. 100%. And the way that they
100%.
dealt with Des Ford, man, that was
disgusting.
Despicable, bro.
That was a kangaroo court. And he loved Ellen.
And like I said, I might not agree with 100% of what he says. Currently, where I'm at, And I've got my views on the Bible and the sanctuary and the IJ, but that doesn't mean that you do, man. Especially he told me that he had what did he say? He said that he had immunity on the day. They gave him immunity
Yeah.
to go and share his views, and then not long after that they sacked him. What
Yeah.
kind of Christian attitude is that, bro?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
heard that
Well,
he
it was a setup.
wasn't even allowed to have his funeral at the Avondale. Oh,
Not on Adventist soil.
bro,
I've got that on me now too. I'm not
There's
allowed to do my
on
bush
me
dances on Adventist soil anymore.
that he considers himself. Well, the last when I interviewed him, he considers himself fully Adventist. He's
Yeah.
vegetarian. He keeps the Sabbath.
Lived a life of an
Gospel.
absolute virtuous Christian.
He's
But the one
it's going to get awkward. Put it
I'd
this
still-
way. Put it
I'd
this way.
still-
Peter. It's going to get awkward.
the
Right?
the one
It's going to be
problem.
awkward when we're all in heaven, when we're all in the kingdom of heaven, and we come across this, and so just got to be careful on the way that we present ourselves as Christians and
Oh, 100%.
spirit on how we live.
I agree. I agree. But what's sad is that what you've just said then, if you'd said that in 1984, you'd have lost your job immediately. Now you might a little bit, but back then 100% guaranteed. But look, my point though is that if you admit, the church can't admit that. If they admit that Ellen White got that wrong, October 22, 1844, you have to then admit that God didn't tell her, because her claim is, God told me William Miller's dates are accurate. Something happened that night. Then she elaborates the full plan of salvation was unfolded that night. So that's not a little mistake. That's not okay, let's admit that. The church admits that, it's over for the church.
Yeah.
Because it does away. Now, look, what do you think about that?
Look, the difficulty with the investigative judgment, like you said in the beginning, is that it's the only doctrine that is unique to Seventh-day Adventists, but it's also the only doctrine that is built on the visions of a person
The
outside of the
confirmative.
Bible. It's the only doctrine, and
Yeah.
that's where it gets sticky.
That's where it's
You know
very
what-
sticky.
That's where it gets sticky,
Very, very sticky.
and we've got to be honest with that.
Yeah.
and but
Mate, I agree.
Look,
I don't think that you are going to get satisfaction as an Adventist minister ultimately. I can see you running a lovely little church that, like Brendan Valiant, that, he loves Ellen, he loves Adventism, but, he's doing his own thing. He was treated very badly over the whole vaccination stuff and whatever. But I can see you, Brendan and Lloyd starting a little fellowship group of kind of Adventist-y teachings, but with a real gospel-centered. We admit all the false teachings of the past. We're honest about that. I don't think you can be honest and be an Adventist pastor. I don't mean that offensively, but the reality is, you look at some of this stuff, it's just laughable, the claims that she made, and you can't just brush it off as she had flaws and faults and was human. She built a whole church. Unless you want to say something on that, which I'm more than happy for you to, I'll bring up a couple of comments.
No, I just don't like it if people try and box me into something that I'm not. I love the freedom.
But what's funny is the Advent. My point is, Adventism is a suppression box machine. I'm surprised you haven't felt that yet, brother.
Well, I have, and it kind of affected me and my family, because I thought I needed to be or look like certain people in the Adventist church to be a real Christian.
Yeah,
I went through that phase, and it just came back to bite me in the bum. So I don't like it. So I went back to
I
being.
thought you said you didn't have that experience. That's not been my experience, Peter. I've not ever had people try to confine me and box me.
Yeah, no. But at the end of the day, I do believe, Peter. I do believe that God is. I mean, I look at the fruit of the ministry. You take these young teenagers who came together for Bible study.
Yeah, but
Over
40 to
150 years
60%
ago.
are leaving. The
I
mental
get
health
that.
levels of Adventist youth are disastrous compared to even other people's
I get
stats.
that. But
So
what
there's
other
the
church-
fruit.
But what other church besides the Catholic Church has a presence in nearly every country around the world?
Yes, I
No,
don't
I'm
care.
just saying.
I've got a weekly
gospel.
Monday night gathering that gathers, and we get maybe 10 to 20 people. I don't care if that's as big as it ever gets.
I'm not talking about numbers. I'm just talking about presence. And when we look at the Great Commission, it's all about getting that gospel out there, making disciples.
Joseph Smith's presence is around the world is phenomenal.
Joseph Smith.
Yeah, like if you're saying, look at the presence of this movement and the influence they have,
Not as much as
that confirms it's good. I'm saying, well, anyone can say that. Look at the presence that Mormonism has around the world, but you're not saying that that's a good, like, you know.
No. I'm just saying, with all the bad things that are happening, I think there's some good things. So over 20 million followers at the moment, and yeah, like you said, there are people leaving as well. We're trying to shut the back door with the gospel, and not with some of these weird ideas that are out there. The nuances.
It's failing, bro, big time. It's not moving. It's not moving in the true pulse of God's desire. Now, Lloyd.
Yep.
Lloyd has written. Do you know Lloyd?
Yeah.
You and Lloyd would get on well, I reckon. And Brendan, you know Brendan Valiant.
Actually, I was leading the big tent for the WA conference, and Lloyd came down, and then they called me to Victoria conference. So I just missed him.
All right. Yeah.
He came to speak for me, and then I left.
Lloyd's a Fordite, and he doesn't even realise it. Now, Lloyd says Adventism does not have to defend the IJ from the writings of Ellen G. White. We do have to defend it from the Bible, which is a great segue into the whole point of our conversation. You are now going to share with us the relevance of the investigative judgment at a deeper level of why you think it can be backed with the Bible and the Bible alone.
Yeah, like
I will stop my prattling and get you to share that with us.
No? Okay.
Yes, I reckon if you want to. I do have a couple other questions, but I'll leave that for a bit later. We've covered a lot of ground already, and as usual, it's turned into a conversation rather than specific focus.
Off the cuff, man.
How often do you get up this way to Kurumbong?
Never. My son's there at the moment. He's second year theology.
Right.
But maybe I'll go visit him or something. I don't know.
You should visit him and let me know, and we'll if you need a place to stay, we've got a spare room. I'll take you and your wife up to the Hunter Valley and show you around. It's beautiful up here.
Is this recorded? Because I'm going to take you up on that, man.
It's being recorded. You take me up on it.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
I literally had my friend, as I said, stay with us for 2 nights just now, and we had the greatest conversations into 2 and 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
So look, and Gospel Adventist Stephen Beagles, I reckon you and him and Lloyd and Brendan, I reckon you'd all have a much more powerful ministry if you left the church. But anyway, that's just my humble opinion. So the floor is all yours. Share away your not defense in the sense of you have to prove it, but tell us biblically how you can land on October 22, 1844 investigative judgment as being an authoritative claim and teaching based on the Bible alone.
Oh, look, God had given a pattern in the Leviticus 16 with the sanctuary. He was very detailed on how that pattern was to work out, and there was a shadow of things to come. So when we look at the prophecies, I just think that that's the way it fits. 1844 is a big part of it, as part of the atonement process in eradicating sin forever. But more so from the gospel lens that God is just so interested in us. He wants to get involved with us. He wants to be a part of everyday life. We just don't fold him up on Sabbath or on Sunday, whatever day you worship, and put him away. But he wants to be involved in that, man. And no matter what, the Bible says, we will never lose our salvation. He says, it's like trying to grab him out of his hand. He snatches us, So if we understand that, we have the assurance of the salvation, but also with the lens of 1844 and the atonement process, I think it's a very exciting journey for me. It's relational. We can bring hope to people, but also I think just makes sense on who God is, for me, in a loving sense. That God is just really right into us, but also wants to eradicate the stuff that has been hurting you, Peter, the stuff that has been hurting me, our families, everyone in history. And God is interested in that, and He wants to eradicate it. But because it's such a difficult, I don't know how to say it, it's an issue, sin, right? It needs to be played out somehow, and that's where the background or the worldview of the great controversy comes in for me. It just makes sense. So yeah, relationally, it makes sense for me. Experientially, I'm still on a journey, and that's where I currently land.
Sorry,
Your mic's muted.
I muted myself. But biblically, like, I guess we're talking about the investigative judgment. We're not talking about the judgment. We're not talking about atonement. Like, I everything you've just said, as a Christian, you can take from the cross, the judgment right at the end of time, and how people become aware of their behavior and try to live the Christian life ethically, morally, virtuously. All of that can be seen in the four Gospels. You don't even need to go to Paul and the epistles and any of that. You don't need to go to Daniel and Revelation. You can find all of that in the four Gospels, what you just said. And you can find it from the atonement of Christ on the cross. You can find it from how the disciples and Christ taught how to judge one another, how to not judge one another, how to live an ethical life. You can look at the judgment at the end of time in that context. I don't see how a special, like the IJ is not just a judgment. It's a special judgment started that night, biblically supported only with Ellen's confirmation visions. I'm trying to work out. So everything you said, I've agreed, but that's just normal Bible, gospel judgment, Christian lifestyle, God leading, transforming. It has nothing to do with the investigative judgment. I'm trying to tease out and not challenge you. I said I wouldn't ask hard questions. I hope you're okay with me pushing back. I'm just trying to find out, because I love how authentic you are. I get to have a proper conversation. It's not scripted. So means I can ask questions. What is significant about the Adventist IJ teaching? Because it appears to me, if you make it distinctive, well, then what happened for the 1800 years prior to that? If it's distinctive, but Jesus hasn't returned imminently, how does that play out till the end of time? It suddenly dissipates into a nothing burger, and it's all about the Bible, the gospel. It's suddenly becoming more and more irrelevant. You even said the young millennium, they don't even care about it. So how can it maintain some kind of distinctive, biblically supported notion when the people don't care about it? Pastors can't defend it from the Bible. It seems pointless to me. If you've supported it from the Bible, what's the point of the actual 1844 suddenly thrown in the works? It seems absolutely insignificant, because everything you've said stands on just the four Gospels.
And so be it. I mean, and you can get that from the Old Testament as well, like I just try to explain, but that's where we land. And look,
what's significant about it is what I'm saying. If it's the claim that it is the only distinctive doctrine, what is significant about it? Yeah, it froze for a second there. I think I'm still here. Can people tell? Sometimes I disappear and the guest stays. I don't know how that happens. My computer shuts down. So if that happens, you just keep talking.
No worries. I forgot the question.
Yeah, so I'm trying to work out, what is it? Why is it? So everything you've said, I agree with. I could never have met an Adventist. I could never have seen the investigative judgment or heard about its distinctive teaching, or Ellen White's confirmations of those dates, and I would still say exactly what you said, just from reading the four Gospels. So what's unique about the Adventist IJ?
I'm not sure, because I think it all lands on their gospel message at the end. I think what separates some understanding of the IJ is the spirit on how we present the IJ.
So that's every day reading the Gospels before 1844, during 1844, and every day afterwards. That special understanding that you've just said is great, but it has nothing to do with 1844.
Yeah, okay, and that's your opinion, and that's fine.
I'm just saying that's my opinion, but why is yours different to that? How are you defending the IJ as being a significant doctrine if so far you've just pointed to being to the gospel? Like, what's distinctive about 1844?
Like I thought I tried to explain it, but it's part of the whole.
Well, what you're explaining is the big picture of everything. But how does anything you've said relate to 1844? Because if you're saying 1844 is distinctive and unique, then the walk that you talked about couldn't have happened before 1844. Everything that leads to that, Christ died on the cross so that walk could begin then. That new era, that New Testament, that new covenant began at the cross when Jesus bore the sins and moved to heaven to then judge and offer freedom to those who chose him, and all those good things that you talked about. That began that day, and it will end when he comes. But I don't get the significance of an Adventist pastor saying that 1844 is special. So I guess I'm saying, what is special about it? What is distinctive about it? Why is it important?
I didn't say it was special. I didn't say it was even distinctive. I just said it's part of the process.
But you at the beginning, I said, isn't it the only distinctive teaching that the Adventists have?
Others,
the only unique teaching?
It's unique to others. Look.
So you don't believe 1844 is distinctive and isn't actually interesting and isn't actually of note?
It is distinctive. It is distinctive. As part of the 2300-year prophecy, if we stick to that.
But you just said it wasn't.
Well, it's not distinctive in a way where it makes us special. That's what I'm saying. Because you can take a real elitist type of attitude, which I've seen when it comes to this type of stuff. But it is distinct in the way in the way that it is spelled out in the whole process of the.
And that's what I'm trying to come to. I'm not challenging you, honestly. I'm not trying to make it hard for you. I'm not trying to put you on the spot at all. I'm literally trying to find out what would be different if you knew nothing about 1844, but you'd said everything you just said, which is based on the Bible and the gospel, but has nothing to do with 1844.
Yeah, look, there's going to be heaps of people, thief on the cross, who are going to be in the kingdom of heaven and didn't know about 1844, bro. Heaps of people, right?
Yeah.
But for people like you and I who like to get to know God more, I guess, on my own journey, and to go more in depth and to see, I guess, different pictures or different sides of who God is, this is where I'm at. Is it salvational? Like I said, not to me. Is it interesting to understand?
So you're saying 1844, October 22 is not a salvational doctrine of the Adventist Church?
Bro. And I'll stand on my laurels on that. It's not salvational, bro. It is not salvation. Is it part of the understanding who God is? Yeah, I think so. I really do think so, that there's a depth to this understanding of 1844 and to the sanctuary message to God that we still don't really quite understand. I'm on this journey on understanding God through it in a much, hopefully in a loving light. Have I landed? I haven't landed. That's why I started off with, this is my current understanding. But it's there. I can't deny it. For me, that's all. For me, it's there. Well, the timelines, the shadows of the century, Hebrews 7 and 9, they talk about it as well. That Jesus, is our intercessor, and we can get that from the cross up there. But there's also that next phase of the ministry of the high priest, where he goes into the most holy place. Why did God spell that out that way? Like there's got to be.
Well, that was old covenant, and then the curtain
we get that.
tore, and then Christ died, and no longer was the old covenant applicable. The whole point of Christ's atonement is to do away with any kind of sanctuary style ritual that's pharisaical, and Adventism and 1844 is reverse engineered pharisaical
Absolutely
doctrine.
But we do understand that there's a sanctuary up in heaven, right? And the one that down here was just a pattern of it or a shadow of it. And so I try to unpack that for myself and process that for myself. If there's a pattern here, if there's a shadow of the reality, then why is it played out like that? That's where I'm at in my journey. And so far where I've landed is that God was so meticulous. He was so detailed in that process that it had to do something with not only the cross, because you can see that in the sanctuary, but stuff after.
Yeah, but everything pointed to the cross. Like all the detail, all the dates, all this good stuff pointed to the cross, which points to a lifestyle, which points to transformation, which points to judgment, which points to an end of time where it'll all be over, which points to God's grace immersing through it at the cross. It doesn't point to 1844.
Definitely not. All I'm saying is the cross. Oh, don't mess with the cross, bro. The cross is the cross. We get that. Without the cross, we're lost. What I'm saying is that it's part of the process, because the sin problem is such a serious problem.
So 1844 is part of the process.
Absolutely.
Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what.
But it's not salvific. It's not a salvational issue, but it's part of the salvation process.
No, it's part of the atonement process of God trying to get rid of the whole sin.
So it is salvific. 1844 is salvational. It's your salvation depends on understanding 1844 if it's part of the process.
No way, man. That's pharisaical.
You said it's part of the atonement process.
It's part of the atonement process, of course.
And is the atonement process salvific? Is it salvational to follow the atonement process? Do you get into heaven or not based on the salvational process of the atonement?
We get into heaven only on Christ's merits alone, or what Christ has done on the cross.
So when we had the great conflict prior to the Garden of Eden, Satan made a claim, and he said that people cannot keep the commandments. And Christ, according to Ellen White, set a plan about that 1844 was very clearly a part of, to prove Satan's claim wrong and therefore vindicate God. Now, that's not biblical, but that's what Ellen White teaches. That's what your church has as a pillar of its movement, that it's put into place to raise a people at the end of time who will prove Satan's claim wrong and vindicate God to the angels and the other planets. So that's the Adventist plan of salvation that 1844 is a key integral part of. What I hear you and other Adventists say is to somehow balance the traditional view with a loving gospel view. I'm saying you cannot marry the two together. The claim that Satan said that people can't keep the commandments is not even a claim he made. There's no biblical sign of that at all. But Adventism's point for being and reason for being, doctrinally, source material, Ellen White, great controversy, all of its teachings up until Questions on Doctrine, until Des Ford, until the New Theology, the whole reason for its being is to build up a people that prove Satan's claim is wrong And when their probation closes, no one knows when, but the righteous will remain righteous and those who aren't won't. And at that point, there's a time of trouble. And in that time of trouble, those who have been chosen as righteous, this is Ellen White's teaching, those who have been chosen as righteous have one last thing to prove, that they can keep the commandments, that they can live sinless without an intercessor to prove to the angels and the other planets that in fact Satan's claim was wrong, and a people, a righteous people, the people that have the seal of God, they're not sealed yet, but the people that have the seal of God can keep the commandments without an intercessor, therefore proving Satan's claim wrong. That's the reason Adventism came into being, to bring a people that can do that. That's the teaching. That's Ellen White. Go and read I've read it 6 times in the last 2 years. I've read chapter 39 and 40 countless times. This is what Ellen White teaches.
Well,
now, this is what Ted Wilson believes. This is what Erton Kohler believes. This is what the vast majority of Adventists are believing, and that movement is growing. I'm not saying this because what you're going to say is, well, that's not my Adventism. And that's what a lot of people say to me. That's not my Adventism. Well, show me your Adventism. Show me your Adventism, and look what happens.
I know.
The Ertons, the White Estate, the GC, they shut you down. They suppress you. They ostracize you. They marginalize you. And what you are teaching is not what I just said. But that is what Adventism's very reason for being. The very reason Ellen White said, Adventism is here. It's a new gospel. It's the 3 angels' messages. It's the everlasting gospel to vindicate God, to prove Satan's claim wrong. Now, in that last time of trouble, the righteous have been chosen as righteous. They must have a potential to fail, or Satan's claim is right. So they have to live, Ellen White says, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month or 2, who knows, a short period of time. They have to live without an intercessor and not sin.
Well,
and then the plan of salvation that Adventism put in motion, the remnant people, a special people raised up, are vindicating God because they prove Satan wrong. That's Adventism. And that's what Adventism came into being. That's what Ellen White teaches. It's not what you believe. I have countless people say to me, that's not my Adventism. Okay, say your Adventism, cookie cutter descends, and you're shut down.
Man, Ellen White would be rolling in her grave right now if she heard all of us arguing over her writings.
No. You're just moving away the topic. She taught that.
I get that.
She taught that. She's rolling in her grave that you may not agree with.
Back to scripture, right? Because if it doesn't make sense, get back to scripture. And for me, prophecy makes much more sense when it's fulfilled. You cannot understand prophecy until it's fulfilled. So unless it's been fulfilled, then you know what? Yeah, get back to scripture. Let's have a look. Now, for me to stand without a mediator, intercessor, that's not what Bible teaches.
Of course, of course not. I agree. I agree.
But what I'm saying is that's where I started off with. I love about this church is that truth is progressive. If Adventists who proclaim to stand,
truth is progressive unless you say it out loud, and then you lose your job.
Sad.
Your books are cancelled.
That's sad.
You're shut down.
Find out about that. I don't know.
You wait till our Nathan conversation. Who's gonna be shut down afterwards?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah.
Look, it's not progressive. Truth isn't progressive.
That's how
like
I see
that.
it. I've had the room to learn.
That's Ellen White's plan of salvation. That's her whole. She said, this is why we as a movement are here, to vindicate God, to stand without an intercessor, to prove Satan's claim that we can't keep the commandments is wrong. Like you can't grow from that. You can't progress from that. That's her nutshell core pillar teaching. And it's all wrapped up in 1844. Like to say, I don't agree with that, that's not my Adventism, is saying I'm not an Adventist.
I don't know.
You can be a country guitar player in Metallica, but you're not going to last long. And you can say, but I claim my right. This is country picking, and I claim my right to be in Metallica. I'm a heavy metal person. No, you're not. You're a country music artist that doesn't realize it. And I want to be bold. You are a gospel man, a gospel teacher. You are not an Adventist. You just don't know it yet.
Well, I don't know. If I don't have a job tomorrow, then that's I've got. I stand on my gospel.
Come on, you can come up here and run meetings on my Monday nights.
But hey, yeah, look.
And look, I might be wrong, and I hope I'm not being offensive.
I love the realism, and I love your passion too. You got a lot of passion in this.
I'm more passionate about who I'm speaking to. I'm not passionate. I'm not anti you at all. I'm not anti you at all. There's nothing you've said I disagree with, except I feel like you're trying to put a round peg into a square hole.
No. Look, and I'm on that journey too to try and really understand a lot of the stuff. But that's where I land at the moment with that. Maybe when I come over and sleep over at your place, we can talk some more about it.
I better be careful. You might turn up, open your suitcase, out come the boxing gloves. Right, Dixon, boof.
10 days right now. No.
So let's talk about some of the good stuff that flows from your understanding of the gospel. You're a pastor. You're ordained for 13 years. You've been a pastor for 17 years. You're relatively. Were you a Christian before you became an Adventist? How old were you when you became an Adventist?
24.
Yeah, see, that's really interesting. I won't go down that path now. We'll leave that for another time. I want to wrap up with you telling me what is it like being a day-to-day gospel-focused minister with your parishioners? What goes on in a typical week for you? What is celebrated on the Sabbath? What topics do you like to raise? What gatherings do you enjoy facilitating and organizing? How do you get into the community and help people? Share with us the Ben Tavao ministry. What goes on? And there's no trick questions. There's no pushback. I want to hear what you do.
So, okay, where do you want me to start?
Yeah. Like, what's a typical week? What's a perfect week for you?
Me.
Yeah, in your world that actually does unfold.
Well, no, are you talking about professionally or personally?
Yeah, like, so for example, if you asked me that, I'd say, well, look, one of the things I love doing is Monday night. That's my kind of gathering time. I get together with a group of people. I sing some music. We share. We eat. We have a good time. Another thing I love during the week is I meet up with people at cafes and we talk about this sort of stuff. And another thing I really love doing is I'm trying to get my Monday night group to try and get together some kind of plan that we can help some of the homeless people that live around Newcastle. What can we do that's a practical thing that shares this good news we've got in the real world? I love doing that. I love hanging out with my family. I love the rare opportunity I get when I can speak my thoughts on the good news. And I love every Thursday night, US time, 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, and Aussie time, 11:30 Friday, where we have Good News Fellowship here online. My world is filled with some robust conversations, wonderful meetings, good food, hanging out, conversations. I love sharing the good news. And I'm just trying to find out what's a snapshot of your week when everything's going great and you just love it and you feel blessed and you feel like you're on target. What does it look like for you? I'm just saying, I want to hear the good stuff that you're doing and enjoy doing, and it's relevant and comes to you from above.
I've only just got to the Victorian conference, but when I was in WA, I just love getting into the community. We started the first community garden and soup kitchen in our conference over there 12 years ago.
Soup kitchens, yeah.
And yeah, and when I brought it up that we do it on a Friday night to open Sabbath with the people, got a lot of pushbacks because it's not traditional. But we did it, and God had blessed, and it's still thriving today. And so I praise God
Yeah,
that
love
even though
it.
I'm over here, they're still, thriving. So,
It's still going ahead.
we just love being boots on the ground. That's for me. I love
Yes, that's where I was
yeah.
that's where I was heading, because I had a feeling that I had a feeling that's what
boots on
you
the ground.
loved. I
I
just
love
wanted to
having
hear
a
you say
yarn
it.
and talking to people in the community,
Yeah,
and just keeping it real.
yeah,
You know what I mean? When we get
yeah,
too religious
yeah,
with people, sometimes I just feel a bit, I need to breathe and get out. And so that's my thing. I need to
yeah,
inject myself back into the community and just
yeah, yeah.
practice.
Practical, good. Like one of the things I love when I left the Adventist Church, and I've said this a million times on the show, but I found that I was definitely losing a sense of identity, and I was starting to unravel in lots of belief areas, and so I grabbed on to the four Gospels, the teachings of Jesus,
Yeah.
not the supernatural. I went back to what can I hang on that's an anchor for me? And one of the things that what you're saying, the boots on the ground, is when you look at Jesus' teachings, it's all boots on the ground.
Absolutely.
And
Got his
when you can
hands
really
dirty.
focus on that,
Yeah, man.
yeah, I love that. I love that. And I very much sense that with you, that's something
Yeah.
you really love doing. And do you enjoy preparing for a sermon, and how do you go through that process? Is it like chat GPT, help me with this, or what inspires, like, for example, what are you working on for this Sabbath? What's a
So it
sermon
depends
that's
on where
coming
my
to mind?
churches are at. I've got a bit of a matrix that I work off to get my churches from wherever they.
And how many churches are you
Over here
looking
in
after?
Victoria, I've got 2 country churches. And they're
Yeah.
the best churches in the world. And I say that to all my churches that I
What?
look after, because that's my team. That's my team right there, man.
Yeah, that's your
So I
team.
look
Yeah.
after Sale Church and Terrelgan Church. Yep.
Oh,
Over here in
yes.
East Gippsland.
I've been
Have
to
you?
Sale long
Yeah,
time
man.
ago. Yeah, when I was a young
Did
man, I
you?
sang there
Come down. I invite you to
long
come down
time
and
ago.
preach.
Yeah, though I'm not allowed
Aren't
out
you?
on the soil anymore.
You're on the blacklist. So yeah, we
So what's your sermon this week?
so I'm doing a series on discipleship. So I look at a church where we're at, and we look at topics, and then we go through discipleship. So yeah, we're coming towards the end.
See, that's another boots on the ground topic, isn't
Well,
it? Yeah.
it's for me, the priority has always been the Great Commission, bro. Like, there's nothing else in my purview. It's
Yeah.
what Jesus has left us with, and so that's my purpose. That's what gets me up in the morning, and I'm hoping that is our church's purpose as well. It's nothing else. Like, we have this focus, right? And we can enjoy, I think, ministry better when we're on the same journey. So it's just about our churches on their journey together, how we can do ministry in practical ways and showing the love of Christ. So 2 things that I wanted to do when I was back in Cannington, Western Australia, the question that I asked him, we only had a small church. You could count the people on my hands, like it was small when Glenn and Town first gave me that church. And I just asked him the question at board. I just said, hey man, if we're to close our gates tomorrow, would anybody in the community know that we existed? That was the only question that I
Yeah.
asked.
Well, that's a good one.
And man, sober reality came back. They all said, no, we've been here for 50, 60, 70 years. No one knows. So what are you going to do about it? Like, so
Exactly.
for
Good
me,
question.
my church, because this is my team that I'm in, it's all about upping the profile of my church, despite what other people are seeing out there on YouTube and all that, all this cultish stuff.
Yeah.
That's not me, bro. So I'm just like, hey, let's up the profile of Jesus and our church and the community. I think that's a better fishing net and more attractive to bringing people to the gospel rather than trying to manipulate them and spending thousands of dollars on advertising that doesn't even work. Let's
I agree.
let's try and just live Jesus, and this has been a big thing in my ministry, is preaching just friendship evangelism is such a powerful tool. But it means you actually got to live out what Jesus looks like. Start with being kind, start with being nice, things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't know how to smile, practice at home. Smile. So these are the things that we
I like it.
need to, and
Yeah.
this is not a criticism. It's a reality. Sometimes our Adventist people are just too stuck in their own bubble and their silos that they don't know the realities of the real world. And so for me as a minister,
Yeah.
it's preparing our people to, hey man, it's more than just meeting
Yeah.
up on Sabbath, bro, or, listen to our own echo chambers.
Yeah.
Jesus
Yeah.
is saying something here. We've got to move.
And I like what you said there. If this church closed, would anybody even notice? And people should notice if something closes. I won't mention his name, but he's a pastor in the local area, and he has your attitude as well. I don't know if you know him even. He's around your age, and I'll see him there at Bunnings. Bunnings offers local community endeavors to sell sausages there, and they have a sausage sizzle, and they make money for whatever, and Bunnings gives them the little tent and the barbie and whatnot. And he's often down there with his team from the church, and they're and in the area they give away clothing and all sorts of stuff, and that's leaving a mark on community, and they run events, and they have the Christmas carols on their yard every year, and I love that. I love when people are more practical about it, because when I went through the dark night of the soul and could only look at the teachings, and I mean only the teachings, only the boots on the ground, I couldn't even cope with the supernatural. I just had to look at the boots on the ground. What was he doing? And at the end of the day, I think that should be our focus. And all this other stuff's fun. It's meaningful with mental health. I believe the church has an issue with suppressing its members, and I think that really needs to end. And part of my passion is to try and cajole and push them to, come on, stop being scripted. Come on the show. Come on, Glen Townend, if you're watching. Come and share your faith, come on. And be proud and be bold, because there's a lot of hurting people at the moment in the Adventist church who feel that they're not being listened to. They're feeling that their home isn't welcoming them. And there's a lot of Adventists, from your Conrad Vines to your Ron Kellys to these guys, the progressive liberals, to so many people, women right now with women's ordination, they just don't feel they have a home. And so, I think it's really important to be boots on the ground. And I think it's important to really stand up for our daughters. And what signal are we sending to men as well, unless it's clear? Go for it and say that women shouldn't be ordained, but be clear to your children about that as a doctrine. Those who don't believe it, be clear. Stand up. Stop the silence.
And it's okay to say that, I fully don't understand this. I'm on a journey on trying to understand, and that's not an excuse or cop-out. But I do think with some of these real quirky ones, and I do believe it's quirky, that the jury's not out for me. And that's what I said to you over our message before we did this. It's just not out. But this is where I currently stand. And that's okay. I think that's okay too. And then there'll be other topics that I'm not, I'm still growing in as well. And that's okay.
Of course, And how old are you? 34, 35?
Oh man, I love you, bro. I want to come stay at your place.
You're older than that. I thought you're in your 30s.
No, bro. I'm turning 50 next Monday.
No way.
Yeah. You should see my wife. She looks like she's like 20
50.
years old, bro.
Well, that's one of the reasons I was also thinking you were young, because I saw the photo of both of you and I thought, these young, jolly 30-somethings.
Oh, it's the joy of the Lord, my bro. The joy of the Lord.
Oh, man. Hey, Dexter Lab has written, I give Ben credit for understanding each disagreement is not a personal attack. Gospel Adventist. This is going to be another opportunity for me, Stephen Beagles. Opportunities for growth. 1, clarify the proper way to view Ellen G. White. 2, promote the full assurance of salvation in Christ. 3, explain proper motivation for law keeping out of love for being saved. These guys did it, Stephen. in this book. And guess what? 6 days later, it was
Wow.
banned right across the world.
That actually
right
makes me
across the
want to
land.
read it now. Like anything that's suppressed.
You'll love it. It's not controversial. It's
Well,
the
why would you
gospel you
suppress?
talked about.
Oh man.
The white estate pulled it because because if you try and say even some stuff
Yeah.
you've said today, you actually water down the authority of Ellen
Yep.
White. Asking questions. Ellen White herself said, agitate, agitate,
Yep.
agitate. She encouraged that kind of,
Yep.
discussion.
That's right.
But this is what the GC said in 2015. Rather than replacing the Bible, her writings uplift scripture and get this, and correct inaccurate interpretations of it derived from tradition, human reason, personal experience, and modern culture. And that is a disaster to give someone that power, because then who decides the interpretation on any given day or any given book or chapter or thing that she's written, that they have the right to invoke that is correcting an inaccurate interpretation of scripture. Ellen White should not be given that authority. And that's what Des Ford, these guys, they've done. It's what Stephen Beagles from Gospel Adventist does. Some ways you and I have done that today. And people who do that in the Adventist church soon find themselves on the outer. One of the shows I did recently was about a couple, Monica and Robert Vowless, Vowless, I think. New Zealand, their open letters in the 1930s. She was here at Avondale with Prescott in 24. She went on to Loma Linda to become a doctor. She, intelligent, smart, creative couple. They asked the questions that you and I have talked about today. Got the boot, wrote about it, marginalized, suppressed in the 30s, 90 years ago, 45 years ago. Des Ford, boom, marginalized. Pastors asking questions, fired. Bill Johnson, he said, I wish Des had just kept it in his back pocket and the IJ would have become not watered down weren't his words, but it would have become better understood and more gospel oriented if you'd just been quiet. And I said, well, how'd that work out for you, Bill? You've been quiet about it for 40 years. Did that work out for you? It's still a problem. So the Adventist church, honestly, I just got exhausted trying to just preach the gospel. And you can in your own little sphere, but collectively, it's just a minefield of suppression. It's a suppression machine.
No good.
That's my thought, mate. I've really loved chatting with you today. Andy McMahon just wrote and said that she maybe worked with you and did some music stuff for a Jerusalem thing that you organized. She wrote that. I can't see where that is. It's gone now, but lots of good comments. Yeah, so lots of stuff there going on, and I really appreciate you being on the program today. I went a bit harder than I thought I was going to. I thought we were just going to chat.
Man,
I was just going to
get my
listen.
boxing gloves out.
Yeah, I know. I'm in trouble. Now that I know you're 50, though, surely you got to be slowing down. Surely, no, I bet you're not. I bet you're as fit as ever.
Yeah, it's getting salty.
I just set up a gym right behind me. Behind that curtain is my gym. And it's got the weights this way and pull them down this way on the pulley, and it's got leg up and things to the side. And mate, next time you're on the show, I might have to wear a singlet to show my muscles off.
Go on. Yeah, why not?
I'll see the viewership 0. Hey, but look, if Nathan Brown is watching, I'll write to him today, and let's try maybe for next week to have a discussion about what we talked about. It would be very explosive. It's blowing up the Adventist church right now, massively. one of the most divisive conversations I think we would ever have. And I'm trying to think if it's responsible to have it here or not. So let's sleep on that, and we might make it happen. Any last thoughts you'd like to share
No,
before we say
I was just
farewell?
cracking up at Rick's comment over here. He goes,
Oh, I've not been. What's he
he said,
said?
"Oh, you better something about go look for a job tomorrow."
Oh, really? Where
Oh,
is that?
Rick,
Okay.
he cracks me up. And yeah, Rick, he said, if I knew Jesus is enough, trust me, brother. I know Jesus is enough, and I'll land with this. You know,
Oh,
God
you'll be
called
totally
me.
fine. Even if you got fired tomorrow, you'll be
But you know
fine.
what? God called me into this job, and He's the only one who's going to take me out. So I don't care. As long as I'm standing on the gospel, on scripture, and with Jesus, I am totally fine. If they sack me tomorrow, then hey, who cares? God's got me, bro. I have no worries in the world. Oh,
Yeah.
but this is where He's put me at
Yeah.
this time in my life, and I'll continue to serve faithfully, and I'll continue to speak my mind as I see it. And I just appreciate the invitation to come on board. You know, Peter, that I reluctantly accepted it. I denied your first invitation, but after,
Yeah. Do you regret it now?
it's all good. I just felt like after the death of Charlie Kirk and what he stood for, that kind of inspired me. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to jump on and share some of my views.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know,
Classifieds. He said, check the classifieds.
is that what Rick said? You better check the classifieds, Ben. Jobs opening in your area.
That guy.
Well, I wasn't worried when I left. I mean, I lost 30% of my income from the Adventist church when I left, and it's never worried me. You should not. I don't think anyone should base their financial requirements of staying. Although, having said that, the topic that you're just mentioning that we may have with Nathan, I have thought that could split SDA community in half, and people just leave altogether. And yeah, how would I put food on the table for my two daughters? So I guess I'm being a hypocrite if I say that, you know, people shouldn't. You know, some of these guys that don't speak up, that's the reason. They don't want to lose their jobs. So yeah, there's other questions coming through, but let's leave that. I'd love to have you back. I hope I haven't offended you. I love this kind of robust conversation. It's real. It's authentic. It's unscripted. And I think all of us benefit from that. So thank you, Ben Tavao. I really appreciate it. Jude Young writes, prayers, Pastor Tavao. And yeah, some good thoughts and comments coming through. Thank you, everybody. Look, tomorrow, I'm not sure what's on. We might be having a replay tomorrow, everyone, on one of the Des Ford series. I think we're up to number 26. I don't even know who's on. We'll see how we go. I've put some other invitations out there. So it'll be a great gathering tomorrow. Join me no matter what. Ben, until next time, and everybody else, see you tomorrow.
Blessings.